Hello students, today we are going to do Lost Spring chapter from Flamingo. This Lost Spring is actually the stories of stolen childhood. Let's see what's written about the author. Annis Jung was born in Rourkela and spent her childhood and adolescence in Hyderabad. She received her education in Hyderabad and in the United States of America. Her parents were both writers. Annis Jung began her career as a writer in India. She has been an editor and columnist for major newspapers in India and abroad and has authored several books. The following is an excerpt from her book titled Lost Spring: Stories of Stolen Childhood. Here she analyzes the grinding poverty and traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. So this is actually, if you see the theme of the chapter also, wherein the author discusses and analyzes the poverty-stricken conditions of a particular strata of society and also the traditions which condemn these children to a life of exploitation. Sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage. Here I is Sahib-e-Alam. Sahib-e-Alam is a young boy and he is a rag picker. Why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. This is the author who is asking Sahib, why does he do it? Whenever she encounters him, encounters will mean meet. Scrounging means searching. Gold means livelihood. Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. So where does he come from? He comes from Dhaka, that is his hometown. His home is not even a distant memory. He has forgotten completely about his home in Dhaka. He remembers nothing of the house and the home. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes, his mother tells him. So his mother has told him that why have they shifted to this place? It's because of the storms that had swept away their fields and homes, washed away their fields and homes. That is why they left, looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. So he's quite listless and he says, what will I do if I don't go for scrounging gold in the garbage? Go to school, I say glibly. Glibly is insincerely, in a shallow manner. So the author is, insincere because she knows it's just for the sake of saying that she's saying, and realizing immediately how hollow the advice must sound. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. So Sahib-e-Alam replies that when there is a school, he would go and join. If I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? It takes longer to build a school, I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. Actually, this is it. The weaker section of the society are exploited. People make promises and do not keep them. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. But the author knows that these kinds of promises, the one that she had made, are the kinds which abound in every corner of his bleak world. Bleak means dark world. Abound means are found in abundance. This is an important line. You can underline this. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. After months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. See children, here you have the irony. The name is Sahib-e-Alam, means Lord of the Universe. But he doesn't understand the meaning of his name also. He does not know what it means. If he knows its meaning, Lord of the Universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Even if he would know it, it would have become difficult for him to believe. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys. Barefoot means without wearing any slippers, chappals, or footwears, who appear like the morning birds and disappear at noon. See what a beautiful comparison. Here, the barefoot boys, the urchins, they are compared to morning birds. These are the same boys who work as rag pickers along with Sahib Alam. So they are like morning birds and they disappear at noon. So they go scrounge for gold in the morning and they disappear in the noontime. Over the months, I have come to recognize each of them because the author has been meeting them every day, quite often. So now she knows each one of them. Why aren't you wearing chappals? I ask one. So there's one child who answers, my mother did not bring them down from the shelf. He answers simply. Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another, who is wearing shoes that do not match. So the other child says, even if the mother brings them down from the shelf, this boy is not going to wear them. And when the author sees, she notices that this child who had answered is wearing a pair of shoes, but they do not match with each other. So probably scrounged from the garbage. When I comment on it, he shuffles his feet and says nothing. I want shoes, says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. So look at the poverty. They don't even have slippers, shoes to protect their feet. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking barefoot in cities, on village roads. So author is not unaware of this kind of a condition. Moreover, she had been in India for a long time. She knows the Indian society also. So she understands that it is not the lack of money but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. She understands the conviction, the thought, the excuses that are given by the ragamuffins, that are given by the street urchins, these rag pickers, and she says that this is one explanation that they give, that they have enough of money, but that is their tradition not to wear any shoe. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. Perpetual is lasting forever. So the author feels that it is rather an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty, that these children know that their state is never ending, they will never become better. Hence, this is a way they explain it. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. So this child used to go to school passing an old temple and his father was a priest over there. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. So his father was a priest and he would stand in front of the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited this town and the temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. Desolation is uninhabitation. There were hardly people staying there. So this is now 30 years later. In the backyard where lived the new priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. That shows there had been some development among the priests. There were red and white chairs. A young boy dressed in a grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his bag on a folding bed. So there was a young boy, probably the child of the priest, the new priest, and he was dressed in the school uniform and he arrived panting. Panting means breathing heavily, fast. It happens when you work a lot or when you do a lot of exercise or when you come running. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy had made to the goddess when he had finally got a pair of shoes. So he remembers that person who had made a prayer. Let me never lose them. So those kinds of children who don't have a pair of shoes, if they get one, they do not want to lose them ever. The goddess had granted his prayer. So, somewhere or the other, the goddess had been merciful. Young boys, like the son of the priest, now wore shoes. So, back 30 years back, there was somebody who was praying. That was the priest's son. Now, 30 years later, the son of the priest is wearing shoes and school uniform. That means there had been progress. That is the progress for the priests only, or a particular strata of the society only. What about the rag pickers or the poor children? But many others, like the rag pickers in my neighborhood, remain shoeless. This is the irony, that many rag pickers and poor children, they have no change in their fate. They are the same. So here you have, in the last line, if you underline it will be good, and also write down that there is a comparison. Rag pickers will be shoeless even after 30 years, whereas the priests will have it. My acquaintance with the barefoot rag pickers leads me to Simapuri. Simapuri is a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. So here she says that as far as acquaintance, familiarity, or knowing the barefoot rag pickers is there, it has led the author to Simapuri. Simapuri is a slum-like place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. If you see metaphorically, then this place Simapuri, though it is in Delhi, it is far, far, far away from Delhi. Those who live here are squatters who come from Bangladesh back in 1971. So these people are the squatters. Those who are squatters, those who capture a piece of land illegally. They have come from Bangladesh in 1971 and have settled down here. Sahib's family is among them. So Sahib is one among them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. At that time, back in 1971, it was not at all a developed place, Simapuri. Wilderness because it was all empty. It still is. Yes, now it is no more empty, but it is still a wilderness. Wilderness, why? Because there is no progress, there is no development. But it is no longer empty. Why no longer empty? Because these people, squatters, have settled here. In structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage, or running water, living 10,000 rag pickers. So this is the poor, miserable condition of these people who are trying to survive in Simapuri right from 1971. They are living in structures of mud with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, or they are devoid of sewage, there's dirty water everywhere, drainage or running water, and live 10,000 rag pickers. There are 10,000 rag pickers living in this condition. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity. So they have not been given any identity, no facility, yet they are surviving, trying to survive over there. Without permits, but with ration cards. So they have no permits to come and settle down in the country. But ironically, or you can say the corruption and exploitation is such that they do not have permits, but they do have ration cards that get their names on voters list and enable them to buy grain. So this is what that is helping them to survive. They are there on the voters list. So this is again exploitation. Politicians and powerful people use them as their voting bank, and hence they have their names on the voters list, and that also helps them to buy some grain from the government ration shop. Food is more important for survival than an identity. So food is more important. They don't want identity, that's okay, even if they are staying without an identity, but what they want more is food. If at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without an aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. So this is a pathetic condition Why have they migrated to India or to and have settled down here in Simapuri in Delhi? Because their stomachs were aching because of the hunger. There were hunger pangs, and here at least there's something to eat and survive. Say a group of women in tattered saris, when I asked them why they felt their beautiful land of green fields and rivers wherever they find food. Wherever they find food, they pitch their tents that become transit homes. Transit homes, you know what a transit? Transit means makeshift. They are temporary homes. Just pitch up a tent and live there. Children grow up in them, becoming partners in survival. So, children also grow up in such tents and they become partners in survival. Survival is trying to survive, they are trying to struggle and survive along with their parents in such miserable conditions. And survival in Simapuri means rag picking. So, if you have to survive in Simapuri, that means one has to be a rag picker only. Through the years, it has acquired the proportion of a fine art. So, as the years have passed and the people have come and settled down over there, it's not only picking up the rag or scrounging for gold, but now it has become a fine art. Garbage to them is gold. For them, the garbage is not garbage, something that we try to push away from our corners of our house. Also, for them, that dirt is gold. It is their daily bread. So they find their livelihood from the heap of garbage in their neighborhood locality, or move around and find a roof over their heads. So garbage means a lot to them. It is daily bread. It is the shelter. Even if it is a leaking roof, it's okay for them because it's at least a shelter there. But for a child, it is even more. But for a child, it is really more of it. I sometimes find a rupee, even a 10 rupee note, Sahib says, his eyes lightening up. Lightening up means, lighting up of eyes means very happily. So he was very happy when he was saying that I sometimes find a rupee also. When you can find a silver coin in a heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging, for there is hope of finding more. Very, very important. Where you find one silver coin once in that heap of garbage, you don't stop scrounging. So when you find something, then you become more and more hopeful of finding more. It seems that for children, garbage has a meaning different from what it means to their parents. These lines are important. Garbage has two different meanings for the children and their parents. What are the two different meanings? For the children, it is wrapped in wonder. So for children, it is wonder. It is a matter of surprise. For the elders, it is a means of survival. And for the people, for the parents, for the elders, it is a means of survival because it gives them money and livelihood. One winter morning, I see Sahib standing by the fenced gate of the neighborhood club, watching two young men dressed in white playing tennis. I like the game, he hums, content to watch it standing behind the fence. I go inside when no one is around, he admits. The gatekeeper lets me use the swing. So why does he go inside? He goes inside to actually, enjoy the swing. Sahib too is wearing tennis shoes that look strange over his discolored shirt and shorts. So from somewhere he has got a pair of tennis shoes and he's wearing, and they look absolutely a misfit with the clothes and the dress that he is wearing. Someone gave them to me, he says in a manner of explanation. So when the author notices those shoes, he tries to explain it to her that somebody has given those shoes to him. The fact that they are discarded shoes of some rich boy who perhaps refused to wear them because of a hole in one of them does not bother him. This is very, very pathetic. There are children, or there are rich children, who discard things so easily because they have a lot in abundance. But these poor children, they are happy to wear them, to use them. Why? Because they don't have any. For one who has walked barefoot, even shoes with a hole is a dream come true. Sure, very, very certain. For this child, and for many children like him, it is like a dream coming true when he gets a pair of shoes. But the game he is watching so intently is out of his reach. But the game, that tennis, is out of his reach because that is not meant for children like him, the rag pickers like him. This morning, Sahib is on his way to the milk booth. In his hand is a steel canister. What is a canister? Canister is a kettle, a container. I now work in a tea stall down the road, he says. So he's telling the author that now he has changed his work. Now he is not picking up rags, rather he's working in a milk booth and in a tea stall. He says, pointing in the distance, I am paid 800 rupees and all my meals. So he says that now he works in a tea stall where he's paid 800 rupees and he's also given meals. Does he like the job? I ask. His face, I see, has lost the carefree look. Otherwise, when earlier he was carefree, he was happier, he was freer, but now that look has got lost from his face. The steel canister seems heavier than the plastic bag he would carry so lightly over his shoulder. The bag was his. The canister belongs to the man who owns the tea shop. Sahib is no longer his own master. Please underline this line. Sahib is no longer his own master. He says the author says rather that the steel canister seemed to be heavier when he carried it on his shoulders, because earlier when he had a plastic bag he carried it so lightly and without any problem, but now the bag was the canister that he was carrying was really heavy, because this canister is not his. First of all, it belonged to the man who owned the tea shop. And Sahib, when he worked as a rag picker, he was his own master. He ruled, he had his own time to work and not work. But now everything was limited and he was constrained to do the work as per the requirement of the owner of the tea stall. Hence, Sahib understands that this was the end all of his freedom, and that is what is noticed by the author also. So we see that Sahib-e-Alam's story is a story of despair and complete misery. Sometimes, even by doing menial work, people are free, they are more independent. But when we are maybe earning better, yet we can't be very happy about it. Why? Because we are no more free. And that's the story of Sahib-e-Alam, the rag picker. I hope this line by line explanation of the chapter has it made it clear to all of you. So see you again in the next part of it.